I've been seeing a huge uptick in attacks, especially around email and sophisticated attacks that are coming from all over the world. I wanted to take a little bit of a moment and kind of talk through what I'm seeing in the email security space. I think it would be real easy to just say that email security has failed, especially when we're talking about email gateways. But I still believe email gateways do all of the things that we need an email gateway to do. It's just that the attacks have evolved. Gateways were built for things like malware attachments and bad links and bad files, bad sender names. What happened was the attackers started to take notice that the email gateways were actually getting very good at blocking those things. And so they quietly, efficiently, and with the help of AI, very quickly have evolved the tactics at which they're attacking our email systems. Most breaches through email now are not starting with malware, they're starting with trust. In the era of zero trust, we still have some trust issues that are out there. And again, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. And so I'm going to bring you the five email based attacks that I see that are getting through your email gateway that you need to protect yourself from. I think we've made it easier than ever for outsiders to become insiders, especially in terms of our email. We put all of our email in the cloud. We made our user IDs our email address, and basically, we're just a bad password away from someone having access to an actual real account. When attackers send an email from one of these compromised accounts that truly looks like an insider, the gateways tend to go blind. Now, business email compromise is not really something new, but it certainly has evolved. The attackers aren't having to do things like spoofing accounts anymore. They're not hacking in, they're logging in. So they're just getting access to a legitimate account, using those credentials to log in, using AI to then understand the email of that user and then sending their attacks out from that account, or using that to move laterally to other more powerful accounts that that account may have access to. Add on top of it things like MFA fatigue and token theft and OAuth abuse, and there's no malware required. Think about how many invoices, DocuSign requests, PayPal requests, all these things that are coming in if you look at all the email inside of your environment, and you know that those are legitimate or potentially legitimate cases where you can't just block all of those things. The gateway has to let them through. Now imagine you get a DocuSign uh, link in an email, and you've been told to be wary of those things, but this DocuSign link is coming from someone that you've emailed back and forth with for years. This is how these business email compromise situations have really evolved and are causing more damage than ever. Gateways are good at judging messages. Modern attacks, though, are abusing human relationships and trust. What's old is new again, in that QR codes are the loophole in security that no one has designed for. Security tools inspect URLs, not necessarily pixels. QR codes are pushing this risk out to the phone, which in most cases is an unmanaged device and not a corporate controlled device. And so we don't have as much control over these things as we used to. And the scan of the QR code is actually happening after the delivery of the email on an unmanaged device, creating a whole new area for us to be concerned. At first, we didn't trust QR codes. At first, we were told not to trust QR codes, and now you see them on TV shows, menus, parking signs when you need to pay for parking, login prompts. QR codes have become a very kind of fundamental, basic technology that most everyone uses these days. So the behavior feels normal. Add that to maybe an email compromise. So the attack field, the QR code feels normal, the sender looks normal, and you really have a scenario where it's very hard for the user to determine if that's legitimate or if that is a risky thing to do. Here's a little secret: files don't have to be malicious in order to be dangerous. HTML files, they're not exploits, but they can be instructions, which can be exploited. Gateway is very good at sandboxing files at rest, not in motion per se, after there's been some level of user interaction. Once opened, much in the same way as the QR codes we talked about, the attack happens outside of the email controls. Mm, our old model and what the gateways were really good at doing was, does this file contain malware? Yes, it does. I scanned it in a sandbox. I'm going to block this email from coming in. The new reality, though, is really, what is this file doing to convince the user to do next? Instructions on going to somewhere else to do something that might be outside of your email and even your overall security concerns. Uh, an analogy you could use is that this is not a weapon, it's a map. We're not sending malware bombs, the bad guys aren't. They're sending instructions on to where to go that triggers people to follow along and wind up in a bad place. Security tools very good at static analysis, but the new breed of attacker is really living in a user-driven execution type of state where we just need people to go and do stuff. And then when they do stuff, the bad things happen. Another thing that I've been seeing that honestly, in its malicious kind of way, is quite brilliant is that hackers have started hiding themselves. Did I say hacker? I meant attacker. Sorry, all you red teamers out there. The attackers hide inside the tools that we are explicitly allowing. Things like OneDrive, Google Docs, SharePoint links. These all sail through gateways because you can't just block all of these things. These are things that are really truly required for all the business that we're doing. Domain reputation works against us here because these links can actually come from a legitimate domain like SharePoint.com, meaning that they are, again, going to get past that basic URL filtering that most gateways are configured and set up to do. Security teams will even go as far, honestly, as whitelisting some of these domains because you absolutely need to ensure that people are able to share OneDrive and SharePoint and Google links with each other. It's how modern business gets done. So blocking these things breaks business. We can't do that. And but on the flip side, allowing them creates that kind of blind implicit trust. And again, we're supposed to be in an era of zero trust, and yet in some of these scenarios, we're still reliant on implicit trust. So we spend a lot of time teaching our security tools to trust Microsoft, trust Google. These are institutions. We believe them and we trust them. And again, another scenario where the attackers took notes. So the problem isn't the platform. The problem isn't Microsoft or Google. It's who's accessing these files from where and why. Again, if we go back to one of the previous sections, we're talking about the new attacks being instructions on things to go and do. Here is a file that I've shared with you on OneDrive. It looks like it's coming from a legitimate place because the front part of that URL has been spoofed or used or created in a way that makes sense. Now we go and click on things. Heck, it might even bring up Microsoft login credentials that are legitimate, and then we have the credentials being harvested on the back end of that, and that's where all the bad things happen. And finally, everyone's favorite, very human centric social engineering. No malware required. In fact, malware not included. This is the most effective form of attack that doesn't actually look like attacks. These are emails that are coming in with no links, no attachments, just a conversation back and forth. The attackers, especially now in the era of AI, are able to mirror the tone and urgency, timing. Boy, I can now, as an attacker, craft an email that looks and sounds exactly like an email from this account that I have compromised. So, you know, accounts payable, payroll changes, wire transfers, executive impersonation, all of these things have gotten infinitely easier in recent times and are being used more and more effectively across the board. Here's my perpetual defense of end users, though. Users aren't careless, and most users are not trying to cause something bad to happen to their company. They're just responded to the number one thing we talk about in business: efficiency. They're trying to be productive. They're trying to get things done. They're trying to beat deadlines. They're in a rush. They are, getting too many emails and text messages and phone calls and all of these other ways that people are communicating. So they know, the attackers know, that everyone is a little bit scattered, and that makes it infinitely easier to socially engineer someone. Uh, Security tools look for danger. Humans look for meaning. I'm just trying to get my work done efficiently is definitely a mindset that most people have that have gotten their companies into trouble. They're not trying to do something bad, they're just trying to do something faster. And let's tie this all back to AI again, right? This is not a new kind of attack. It's just an old kind of attack that's happening again at the speed of AI. So infinitely faster, infinitely more complex, infinitely more able to spoof users and prey on those sorts of emotions that they have. The danger here is like consistency at scale of being able to do your work, utilize all the tools that you need to do, and be able to determine which ones are legit and which ones aren't, or having technology behind the scenes that can assist with some of this stuff. Again, in the defense of humans, if your defense is assuming that users are your weakest link, you are not going to design your systems that can actually help them at the speed at which they need. We have to go at this understanding that, well, yes, users are certainly a line of defense. If we're not providing them the tools that they need to be able to, one, not even have these reach their inbox, but two, if they do, to be able to protect them, then really the issue is on us, not on our end users. So let's pull all of this together. Email gateways are still necessary. They still do a very good, great job at the things that they are supposed to do. They're just no longer sufficient. Modern email attacks aren't breaking rules, they're just exploiting assumptions and taking advantage of the human personality. You know, so email security today is less about just blocking messages and more about understanding behavior. We have to look at things like post delivery detection, the context of the identities of the sender and the receiver, some behavioral baselining of understanding how our end users operate. And then, undoubtedly, and we'll talk about this more in an upcoming video, data awareness, understanding what's being attached, what's able to be sent and received inside of your email box. So, email security is truly a rapidly changing and expanding area. Traditional defenses, quite honestly, just aren't going to work anymore. You have to layer in some other aspects of email security that are able to look at things from more of a behavioral perspective, being able to help catch some of these new attacks that are coming in, being able to train your end users on a very frequent basis of what sorts of attacks to be looking for, and to ensure that you can continue to leverage all of the things like QR codes and OneDrives that your company needs to do business while at the same time keeping your organization safe. Now, thank you, first of all, for listening to this entire thing. And I'd love to know your thoughts. Am I way off base here? Am I hitting home? What are some ideas or thoughts that you might have as how to best allow your company to be protected from the rapidly changing email attacks that are happening out there? So please please subscribe and put some comments down there. Let me know what you're thinking, and we'll see you again on the next episode.